In the dusty but lively courtyard of the Nwankwo family compound in Enugu, Nigeria, laughter echoed through the afternoon heat. Birds chirped in the mango trees, and distant drums signaled preparations for the evening market festival. A young man named Chuka adjusted his faded shirt and nervously rubbed his palms together. He stood near a hibiscus bush, waiting for her, and then she came. Amaka, beautiful, confident, the daughter of Chief Eznwankyo, one of the wealthiest cocoa traders in the region. She wore a yellow wrapper and her father's wealth like perfume, subtle but undeniable. "You're late," Chuka said softly. "I had to sneak past Mama," Amaka replied, giggling. They met here almost every afternoon. Chuka, an orphan raised by a retired schoolteacher, earned his living fixing radios and phones in the village. He wasn't rich, not even close, but he had ambition burning in his heart. And love. Deep love. Amaka had fallen for him during one of his repair visits to their home. He made her laugh. He made her feel seen, beyond the expectations of her father in society. But their love was a secret, because in their world, love without money was a bird with broken wings. One evening, after saving for months, Chuka bought a silver ring from the city market. Not real diamond, just enough to sparkle under candlelight. The next morning, the village shook. Chief Ez had found out. He summoned Chuka to his compound, seated on his grand carved throne like a lion, ready to strike. "You, dirt under my shoe." Chuka stood tall. "I love her. I'm not asking for your land, only her heart." "You have no future," Chief spat. "No land, no inheritance, no name. If I ever see you near her again." He didn't finish. Amaka stood in the hallway, frozen. She didn't speak. She didn't defend. Later that night, she came to Chuka's hut, handed him back the ring, and said the words that shattered his spirit. "Love isn't enough when the world is watching." She turned and walked away. 2 weeks later, Chuka packed his things and left the village without a word. He boarded a crowded bus to Accra, Ghana, carrying only a torn bag and a head full of broken dreams. No one knew where he went, but he promised himself, "I will return, not for revenge, but to prove that destiny is louder than rejection." He took Amaka to the edge of the river that flowed behind the village. "Marry me," he said, voice trembling. She stared at the ring. "You know my father will never accept this. He already wants me to marry a banker's son from Lagos." "I'm not a banker," Chuka said. "But I promise you, I'll build something. I'll give you more than gold. I'll give you peace." She said nothing for a long time, then nodded. "I'll talk to Mama." The streets of Accra buzzed with life, traffic honking, hawkers chanting, children laughing barefoot in the gutters. But inside a sleek glass building on Independence Avenue, all was silent as a man entered the boardroom. He wore a tailored navy blue suit, his beard trimmed, his presence commanding. His name, Chuka Obi, not the poor boy from Enugu anymore. He was now CEO of Obi Tech Holdings, a tech logistics empire with branches in Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa. But it hadn't been easy. Chuka had started at the bottom, sweeping floors at an electronics shop in Accra's Makola market. He learned fast. Fixed more than broken radios. He fixed supply chains, customer relationships, and eventually businesses. By 26, he'd launched a delivery startup. By 30, he'd revolutionized logistics for hundreds of West African SME. Investors called him a genius. His name made the Forbes Africa Under 30 list. And yet, he still wore the same brown leather bracelet Amaka gave him before everything ended. It reminded him who he had been and why he couldn't forget. One morning, Chuka's assistant entered with a file. "Sir, another company up for acquisition." Big name in cocoa exports, based in Enugu, Nigeria. Chuka raised an eyebrow. "A name?" "Nwankwo Exports Limited." Chuka froze. That name? He hadn't heard it in years. He opened the file, and there it was. Chief Nwankwo, founder. Amaka Eznwankwo, executive director, status, deep in debt, at risk of collapse. Destiny wasn't just knocking, it had kicked the door open. 3 weeks later, Chuka landed in Enugu. His convoy moved silently through familiar streets. People watched in awe. No one recognized the boy who once fixed radios and wore torn sandals. At the Nwankwo estate, Chief Ez, now older, sicker, and struggling, welcomed the mysterious buyer with false smiles. "Mr. Obi," the chief said, coughing into a gold-trimmed handkerchief, "I were honored by your interest." Amaka entered moments later. Their eyes met. and time stood still. She didn't recognize him at first, until he smiled, just slightly, and then the color drained from her face. "I'm offering full acquisition," Chuka said calmly, sliding a contract across the table. Chief Ez blinked. "You're offering to buy our company?" "Yes. I'll retain the name. Some of the staff, but you'll step down completely." The chief's pride cracked like glass. "And you think you're worthy of this?" "I'm not here for worth, Chief," Chuka replied. "I just business." He turned to Amaka. "And efficiency." She said nothing, but her hands trembled, he noticed. After Chuka left, Amaka had married a Lagos banker, exactly the kind her father wanted. The marriage lasted 2 years. The man drank, cheated, and beat her. She left with nothing, returned to her father's company, tried to rebuild. But inside, she never recovered. Not from losing the only man who had truly seen her, not her father's name or wealth, but her soul. She never told anyone, but she kept the silver ring hidden in her jewelry box. Back in the boardroom, Chief Ez finally signed the papers. With trembling hands, he surrendered his legacy. "You were that boy," he whispered, "the one I chased away like a dog." Chuka looked him in the eye. "I was," he said softly. "But dogs don't forget the hands that raised or the ones that beat them." The deal was done. Nwankwo Exports now belonged to Chuka Obi. Alone in her office, Amaka stared at the old photo on her desk, her and Chuka smiling by the riverside. A knock at the door. He walked in. They sat in silence for a long time. Then she whispered, "I'm sorry." He looked at her. I believed you once," he said, "when you said love wasn't enough." She nodded. "And I was wrong." Amaka sat behind her desk, the lights dimmed. Chuka stood by the window, staring out at the once bustling factory yard that now lay silent. "You built something powerful," Amaka said softly. "I always knew you would." He turned. "Then why didn't you wait?" Her throat tightened. "Well, I was afraid," she whispered, "of poverty, of my father, of what people would say. I thought love couldn't survive in hunger." Chuka looked at her, his face unreadable. "I begged you to believe in me." "I know," she said, tears in her eyes, "and I carry that every day." Amaka opened a drawer and pulled out a small box. Inside was the silver ring Chuka had once given her. "I kept it," she said, "even after my wedding, even after everything fell apart." Chuka's eyes flickered. "I thought I was climbing higher," she continued. "But I was falling into a life that wasn't mine. I married for status. He drank, he cheated, he broke me." She placed the ring on the table. But this was real, even when I was too blind to see it." He picked up the ring and held it in his palm. Oh, so many emotions surged through him. Anger, pain, nostalgia. "We're not the only one who bled, Amaka," he said. "I starved in that city. I slept in gutters. I sold my last shirt for transport fare." She lowered her eyes. "But every night I remembered your face. Your silence when your father humiliated me. The way you didn't fight for us." Amaka looked up, tear-streaked. "I was a coward." He nodded. "You were." Sue stood and walked to him. "I don't expect you to forgive me." "I wouldn't. But I want to say it anyway. I'm sorry." He looked at her closely. For the first time in years, really looked. She was no longer the girl in silk wrappers and pride. She was worn, weathered, real. Something inside him, tight and cold, began to thaw. Just a little. The next morning, Amaka arrived at work and found an envelope on her desk. It was from Chuka. Inside was a contract. Executive Director, Community Impact and Outreach. She blinked. He had created a role. For her. In the company she once inherited. The letter read, "You know this company better than anyone. You also know how to rebuild what you helped break. If you choose to stay, it must be to serve, not to save face." C.O. Amaka folded the paper slowly. He hadn't forgotten, but he had offered a path forward. Over the next few weeks, Amaka threw herself into the work. She redesigned factory policies to protect local farmers. She set up a health plan for cocoa field workers. She visited rural schools under Chuka's foundation. Chuka watched from a distance, measuring not just her competence but her heart. Not good at her heart, and slowly he began to trust her again, not as a lover, not as a woman from his past, but as a leader with fire in her eyes. One evening, the village held its Cocoa Harvest Festival. Chuka, now the new patron of Nwankwo Exports, was honored with a ceremonial title, Odegwu of Enugu. Amaka stood nearby, clapping. Later that night, she found him near the same riverside where he had once proposed. "Full circle," she said quietly. He smiled. "I didn't expect it, any of this." Amaka looked at him. "If we could go back, Would you still ask me to marry you? He paused, then said, yes. She blinked, surprised. Then said, but only if you'd fight for us this time. She took a deep breath. I would. Just as things began to settle, trouble arrived in the form of a corporate audit. A multinational cocoa firm, Chocomax International, had offered to buy OB Tech's cocoa division, and they wanted a clean financial history. The old Onwanko records were messy, full of hidden debts and questionable partnerships made under Chief Eze's watch. If Chuka didn't clean them fast, the deal would collapse. Amaka offered to help. These are my father's messes. Let me be the one to fix them. Chuka hesitated. This was serious. But he nodded. Amaka dove into the dusty files. Weeks passed. She barely slept, and one day she found something. A hidden transaction. Chief Ez had used Chuka's old land deed as collateral for a personal loan 8 years ago. That land was Chuka's only inheritance. He had thought it was sold by mistake when he left the village. But now, the betrayal ran deeper than he imagined. Amaka was horrified. She brought the file to Chuka, shaking. I didn't know. I swear. He used your name, your land, to get money to build his expansion, and he never told me. Chuka's face turned to stone. He stole from me even after throwing me out. He had two choices: go public with the fraud, clear his name, ruin the Onwanko legacy, quietly pay off the debt, close the deal, and bury the past. The business side of him said, expose it. The man who once loved Amaka said, let it go. That night he stood by the riverside, alone, just like the night he left Enugu all those years ago. And then she came. Whatever you choose, Amaka said, I'll stand with you, even if it means the world knows my father was a thief. Chuka looked at her. Oh, why does it matter now? She stepped closer. Because I don't want your forgiveness out of pity. I want it from truth. If we're building anything now, it must start clean. He searched her face, and in that moment he knew she wasn't the girl who gave his ring back. She was the woman who could fight beside him now. The next morning, Chuka faced the press. He announced the history, the debt, the fraud, everything, and he forgave it publicly. Yes, I was wronged. Yes, I was robbed. But I believe in building, not breaking. We will repay what was taken. We will rise not just in profit, but in purpose. The room fell silent. Across West Africa, headlines read, from rejection to redemption, how Chuka Obi chose grace over revenge. The Chocomax deal went through. OB Tech became one of the top 5 cocoa exporters in Africa. Amaka became the official coup of the Outreach Division. Fame. Noah's Schools, named after Chuka's late mentor, opened in 3 rural towns. And on a quiet morning under the mango trees near the riverside, Chuka proposed again. This time with no ring of silver, but one made of gold and truth. They married in a village ceremony, not a big city hotel. Drummers played, children danced. Even the elders who once mocked Chuka now praised his name. The boy who had been kicked out for being poor now stood at the head of a legacy he had rebuilt. When asked what changed his life, Chuka simply said, she broke me once. But love, when it grows through pain, is stronger than pride. This isn't a story of revenge, it's a story of vision, grace, and a second chance.